Okay, so this video is going to be another take on the pre-existence of souls and where souls come from, and do they exist before conception or do they enter the body at conception? This video is going to address this a little bit more in depthly, but I'm also basing this conversation on a conversation I had with a friend concerning the pre-existence of souls. So I looked at two major religions basically. Although in Greek thought, the soul has a pre-existence, but Christianity and Islam both have, in general terms, a disagreement over the pre-existence of souls. So Catholics and Eastern Orthodox Christians do not believe that there is a pre-existence of souls, because this was relayed to them by the rulings of the Second Council of Constantinople in 553 AD. So any Christian sect that subscribes to the rulings of that council will say it's quite frankly heresy to say or to think or believe that souls exist before conception. Islam, on the other hand, you could go online and read a whole bunch of different stuff by different imams, and some of them say quite frankly and kind of flatly that there is no soul before conception and that the soul begins at conception. When really, if you look at the Quran and other interpretations, but if you look at the Sahih International version of the Quran, which is interestingly written by three white women, or a translation of the Quran made by three white women, um, I just find that funny, so forgive me. But if you look at the Quran, there's one verse that actually flat out tells you that souls exist before conception, and I'll read it to you. So it says here, right, and it says here, so this is Sahih International, this is Quran verse 7:172, and it says, "And mention when your Lord took from the children of Adam, from their loins, their descendants, and made them testify of themselves, saying to them, Am I not your Lord? They said, Yes, we have testified. This, lest you should say on the day of resurrection, indeed we were of this unaware." And it goes, and this, this goes on in verse 7173 to say, "Or lest you say it was only that our fathers associated others in worship with Allah before, and we are but descendants after them, then would you destroy us for what the falsifiers have done." Um, so sorry, I read that kind of confusingly. So basically, what it's saying is that at some point in time, I'm not saying that the soul is eternal in Islam or that's Islamic teaching that the soul is eternal. What it's saying is that at some point in time, possibly at the creation of Adam, all souls were created and they were made to testify before Allah that they know and are aware of Allah and understand that Allah is one, and that when they are born when they are born in human form, they cannot use the excuse on the day of resurrection that they didn't know Allah was one and that Allah is God. So I mean, that comes with a whole bunch of like illogical kind of conclusions and things like that. Like, I mean, so apparently in one interpretation, what happens is we are all born with al-fitra, which is basically saying that we are aware that Allah is Allah and Allah is one. But what happens is human beings forget that they testified as souls in front of Allah that Allah is Allah and Allah is one. Um, so I'm finding it kind of difficult to figure out who did the forgetting, like who induced the forgetting that Allah is Allah and Allah is one. Like, I mean, and isn't it such a coincidence that all Muslims born to Muslim parents remember their testimony, whereas all Muslims born to Christian parents forget their testimony in front of Almighty Allah. I find that I think Allah should look into the algorithm that He made there. It seems to be malfunctioning somehow. Like something, like that seems really off. Like I guess in a way, it's a beautiful coincidence that all Muslims born to Muslim parents remember that they made that testimony. All Muslims born to Hindu parents don't remember that they made that testimony. Like, I mean, something's running in the background there. So anyway, the main point, going back to souls, is that souls existed before coming to Earth, wherever. they came from. I don't know, heaven or somewhere floating around in the universe. I don't know. So the point is, yes, Islam believes that the soul existed before birth. And there's a hadith in which the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, um, said something that kind of supported that Quran verse, and it is, let me find, this is from shiavault.com. I don't like I know I should be better with my research skills, but I'm just telling you where I'm getting it from. Like the other two verses I got from Quran.com, which I trust, like to have kind of accurate translations and things like that. So, but some of the other Muslim sites, I'm not too sure who I'm dealing with or if they're legit or, like is it just some wacko making up weird stuff about the Quran? I have no idea. Um, but the Prophet said, and I forget which hadith is this because they don't reference it here, but Prophet Muhammad basically said, the souls are like an army joined in the world of spirits. Whichever souls knew each other in that world are attracted towards each other in this world, and whichever remain distant and indifferent there are disinterested to each other in this world. So that's the end of that one. And then in another hadith, he says, "Verily, Allah established brotherhood between the souls in the world of shadows or souls, 2,000 years before the creations of their bodies." So, that's Quranic verse, and then there's hadith that support that there's this other world that souls existed before, um, but we don't, um, but we just don't have a very good knowledge of souls. And it's an important point that we don't have knowledge of souls and what souls are. Um, and you'll see what my point is, but let me just read this verse for you. It's verse 1785 from the Sahih International Quran, and it says, "And they ask you, O Muhammad, about the soul. Say, say, the soul is of the affair of my Lord, and mankind have not been given of knowledge except little." So I'm really focusing on Islam here, in case you didn't notice. But the point of the conversation is to prove that, and this last verse was really important. We don't know anything about souls or where they are, where they exist, if they pre-exist, if they don't. Um, the first verse, that Quranic verse that I read to you about Allah having souls testify before him that he is Allah and Allah is one. Um, like there's holes in it. Like I mean, like so on the day of resurrections, the designed human flaw of forgetfulness is gonna be punished by Allah because he didn't design you with a good enough memory so that the testimony doesn't translate from your soul existence to human existence. Like it doesn't. So what the point is, there's holes and many reasons to disbelieve that souls even exist. And and I'm focusing on Islam here. Like I mean, there's tons you could probably say about the Mormons and Catholics and stuff like that. Um, but the point being in Islam, and the Quran even says, like the last verse I read to you, that we don't know. Like we just have no clue about souls. Like we just don't know. And it is because there is no evidence that souls have a pre-existence, or any good evidence that souls have a pre-existence. We can't pretend that that is knowledge, that is fact, because it's not. If the books of faith, if the most perfect book in the world ever written, which is directly translated from God, like God's actual words, can't form a cohesive understanding of souls and the pre-existence of souls, we can't operate as if that is a fact because it's in a holy book. Like we can't do that. Like it's highly illogical. Like I mean, you can't say because something doesn't exist means it exists. Like it doesn't work. Like it just won't work. Anyway, I do have to make apologies to or apologies for a video I made earlier about a woman called Lila Rose that was on the Dave Rubin Report. I don't agree with her theories about abortion and souls and things like that. But yeah, I think she's Catholic. So I previously said that I think she believes that souls enter the body at conception. But as a Catholic, which she is, she would, obviously technically not believe that. Like she would think that that would be heresy, that, souls exist and enter the body at conception. There's lots of Imam translations and interpretations too that talk about what does it mean that the soul enters the body at conception? Like, I mean, is it coming from somewhere else? When they say enter, what do they mean? Do they mean it's conceived at conception? Like, so there's all these tiny little details, blah 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 blah. Um, some imams interpret the verses of the soul entering the body at conception as being just not so much a soul, but Allah's foreknowledge of what these people are going to be like, etc., etc. Then there's other interpretations about, like, does Allah make souls good and evil before they're even birthed into their human form? Like, because the verse about, like, there the hadith about, souls having a community of souls before they're even born, and they have various traits and stuff like that. Like, I mean, all this stuff is very confusing. Like, I mean, it's like, who's doing what? Like, Allah has some control over some of this stuff, but not others. Like, I mean, so that's all I want to say. Now, the point of the video was to actually talk about all the soul stuff in an anti-natalist context, but I haven't gotten to that point yet. But I guess half of my point is religions have a lot of explaining to do, like when it comes to what a soul is. And looking at just Islam or various sects of Christianity, there's no clear answer on any of this stuff. And it's almost like they tell you there is no clear answer as somewhat of a legal disclaimer, like, well, we didn't say we were sure anyway. But somehow you're supposed to act as if the soul is a surety, like a thing. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know how this video turns out because it seems very kind of choppy and fact based. But we'll see. Okay, bye.